Hey everyone, I'm doing a transit video contest this month. Link in the description. About a century ago, Cincinnati, Ohio began digging a subway. 100 years later, without a single trip made on that subway, the city celebrated the opening of a single 4-mile streetcar line, running entirely in mixed traffic. How did the city's transit fall so far? And why, in spite of that, did a whole bunch of my subscribers tell me I needed to ride the streetcar here and that it was such a game changer for the city? The only way to find out is to go for a ride. Let's take a look at the map. Cincinnati is the third largest city in Ohio, with an urban population of about 300,000, and it's located in the southwest corner of the state, across the Ohio River from Kentucky. Side note, Kentucky was one of the 7 states I'd never set foot in, so after filming this, I drove across the river just to say I'd been there. 6 to go! From the city's riverfront, which is home to stadiums for the Reds and the Bengals, wait, who day? The Cincinnati Connector streetcar travels north through downtown and the Over-the-Rhine Cultural District, making a narrow loop and crossing over in the middle. Now of course, this isn't the first streetcar to ever operate in Cincinnati. Like most major metro areas, the Queen City was once home to a sprawling network of streetcars and interurbans. Cars belonging to the Cincinnati Street Railway were decked out in an iconic orange paint scheme, and they uniquely featured 2 overhead wires and poles instead of 1. Avery, I know you're already typing that the only other major North American streetcar system to do this was Havana, Cuba. Since Cincinnati is surrounded by hills, inclines akin to Pittsburgh's were built to carry cars up and down the slopes. But by 1951, all streetcar and incline services in the city had ended, and it wouldn't be until 2016 that the street railways returned. More on how that happened later. If you've been enjoying my videos and want to support my upcoming trip to Europe, be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below. I began my journey on the connector at Fountain Square Station, and soon our train arrived, a CAF Urbos 3 vehicle, similar to those on Kansas City's streetcar. These could carry up to 154 passengers according to the diagrams on the wall, and while there were a few hard plastic seats available, a lot of the car was open for standing passengers. Riders could request stops, which came with a fun jingle. Stop requested. We rode south through downtown, then turned at the riverfront to drop off the army of Reds fans on board. It was here that we passed an inconspicuous entrance to the Riverfront Transit Center, a mostly abandoned underground bus concourse. And as we waited at a traffic light, I noticed the onboard map featured intensely detailed descriptions of local attractions and businesses without losing its legibility. Quite impressive. We could see Cincinnati's skyline out of the left side windows, which made me crave chili with spaghetti noodles for some reason. Unfortunately, the riverfront is separated from downtown by a trench containing Interstate 71, and we had to bridge the highway to make it back into the city. Like many places in the US, Cincinnati has been eaten away by highways over the years. Streetcar shelters downtown were clean and simple, with glass shelters, benches, and a departure screen. It seemed as if cars were running about every 15 minutes. We passed a series of dedicated bus shelters along 5th Street, which promised good connection between the streetcar and other bus routes. Right after this, a special signal held back traffic as we moved from the right lane to the left. We passed the Hamilton County Courthouse, then made a left onto East 12th Street. We were now in Over-the-Rhine, a historically German neighborhood home to restaurants, breweries galore, and other cultural destinations. We crossed over the southbound track, then passed Washington Park and the Cincinnati Music Hall before heading north, reaching Findlay Market House and turning onto Henry Street, the northernmost bit of the route, home to the city's car barn. Then, the car turned south again, and we passed 2 tracks branching off onto other streets without overhead power, likely built for future expansion. We passed Washington Park again, crossed back over the 12th Street trackage, and turned onto Race Street. But here we should pause, because right underneath this stretch of modern streetcar is, in fact, a subway station abandoned for decades, which never saw active train service. Before World War I, a subway was declared the solution for Cincinnati's traffic problems, and construction began on a few stations once the conflict had ended. But inflation and other budget issues brought the project to an end in the late 20s, and trains never ran at all. Today, 4 stations still exist in this part of the city, and over the years, people have dreamed up all sorts of creative ideas to reuse the old line, none of which panned out. Tunnels proved too tight for freight trains, automobiles, or even PCC streetcars. They weren't sturdy enough to be Cold War bomb shelters, and plans to convert them into a wine cellar, an underground mall and nightclub, or a film set all fell through. In the end, they were only ever used to house the city's water main. In 2002, a massive plan known as Metro Moves was put before Cincinnati voters, consisting of light rail and commuter lines. This 30-year vision hoped to finally put trains in the city's subway tunnels and connect neighborhoods north and south of the Ohio River. At the same time, Over the Rhine was in a state of decline, and a streetcar between it and downtown was proposed to help revitalize the neighborhood. While Metro Moves was squarely defeated at the ballot box, with only 31.6% support, the streetcar idea lived on, and was approved as a standalone system by City Hall in 2008. After numerous ups and downs, it opened to the public in 2016, and despite initially lower than expected ridership, it went fare-free in 2020, and has seen increased ridership over the past few years. Some credit it with revitalizing Over the Rhine, while others dismiss it as a boondoggle or a tool of gentrification. Some even question how directly it's actually tied to the neighborhood's glow-up. I'm not going to weigh in on this debate, but I will say as far as my own experience went, the Cincinnati Connector felt like one of the better modern streetcars in the US. Cars were decently full throughout the whole trip, with people popping on and off, and the wide variety of destinations made it easy to imagine the numerous types of trips people could make on the system. And even though its route is a loop, the northbound and southbound tracks of said loop were never very far apart, making it easy to make out and back sorts of trips. Still, my thoughts on this system are similar to the thoughts I expressed in a video 2 weeks ago. A rail system covering only a 2-mile span of the city is going to have limited usefulness even in the best case scenario. Perhaps now that there's actual functional rail in the Queen City, voters will be willing to approve more of it. One can dream. And for lack of anything else, Cincinnati transit enthusiasts have certainly gotten used to doing a lot of that.